Hi, my name is Sam Johnson and I am a voice teacher. Today I will be reacting to and analyzing Billie Eilish performing Male Fantasy. This is the official live performance and it was requested by Sarah on Twitter. Thank you, Sarah. Let's see how it goes. Getting some Wes Anderson vibes.
Home alone, trying not to eat, distract myself with pornography. I hate the way she looks at me.
Every time that she performs, it looks so obvious that she's feeling things. What's the goal of singing? I think ultimately it's heightened communication. It's getting things across that we can't just get across with spoken voice, and that we need to kind of harness the power of music to elevate things. Feelings, right? Like sharing feelings, letting other people feel different things. There's a big empathy component. So if someone's watching someone perform and that person that they're watching is obviously in it, is obviously experiencing something, and that is showing it, they're showing that they're feeling. That's vulnerable. That's hard to do as a performer, but as a watcher, that's what I want to see. I want to be able to feel what you're feeling for a moment. And I think that she does a great job with that every time. Vocally, it's pretty consistent Billie stuff. It's got a little bit of that extra breathiness. It's generally really quiet. Whether we'd call that easy or not, I think that she makes it look really easy. I sure can't make those sounds.
I'm going back to therapy.
I like that I can hear the little pop of the P. There's quite a bit of processing on her mic. I'm pretty sure, because there always is, but you can still hear some of the little popping sounds, and it just proves to me she's singing it.
'Cause I loved you then and I love you now, and I don't know how. Guess it's hard to know when nobody else comes around. If I'm getting over you or just pretending to.
So she adds a little bit more of the voice on that line, where everything up till then had more of that breathy kind of quality. So by adding more voice, I mean that there's more resistance at her vocal fold level. So singing is at its most basic. It's air passing past some little muscles, the vocal folds, and then being formed into a word. The breathiness is mostly a result of how much air is coming past and how much resistance we get. So on that last line, there was a little bit more buzz in her throat. I generally prefer that as more of a starting place with my students. I love a place where it doesn't sound too pressed and it doesn't sound too breathy, just as a default. The worry that I have with having most people try to aim for that breathy place as more of a default rather than just a special coordination that you use sometimes is it can become exhausting. Having that much air come through can be itchy. Generally, people will run out of breath because you're using more breath. A lot of times it can result in people going a little bit sharp. And if you start from a place that is less breathy, that's like a nice balanced place in the middle, usually those problems don't happen as much. So then after you kind of find what a nice place in the middle is, if you want to go over to a breathy side, feel free. You can do it, and it's an essential part of performing. If you want to go a little bit pressed, feel free, because again, it's kind of an essential thing. But as long as you know where your home base is, you can keep coming back to home base. So I'd be curious what she says her home base is and where she spends most of her time singing when she's not in a performance. Because in performance, it's usually that breathy sound. I love that guitar.
I got a call from a girl I used to know. We were inseparable years ago. Thought we'd get along, but it wasn't so. And it's all I think about when I'm behind the wheel. I worry this is how I'm always gonna feel.
So as an exercise, I think as someone learning kind of when is it breathy and when is it not, just listen to that last phrase that she did. Every other one was different. Nothing was the same all the way through, which is another really important part of singing, of let things change because emotions change. And if the voice gets too locked into I need to be doing this all the time, then we don't sing well, but I never really hear that with her. And there were certain lines where it had a little bit more voice and certain lines where it had a little bit more air. And just training your ear to be able to hear that in other people does make a difference when you go to try to do it yourself.
But nothing lasts, I know the deal. But I loved you then, and I love you now, and I don't know how. I guess it's hard to.
So like on the that part where she kind of let a little bit of vocal fry come in on the onset, that vocal fry helps the vocal folds kind of come together. So I'd be curious if she calls like the breathier one a falsetto or a head voice, or what she would call it. Like, I'm just curious. I call it kind of a breathy head voice, but that little moment right there shows like, okay, we're spending most of our time with not very much vocal closure, not very much vocal fold adduction. And then as soon as she uses that vocal fry, they're like, okay, I'm coming back together. And it works really, really well to get a bigger sound.
No, when nobody else comes around. If I'm getting over you, or just pretending to be alright, convince myself I hate you.
It's interesting. It's fun to kind of mimic what she's doing with her face. What's interesting about that is I then feel things when I make my face look like what her face looks like. A lot of times when working with students, I kind of try to find the most boring vocal technique that they can do, where the face isn't really involved, the emotionality really isn't involved, because I believe that that gives us a really blank slate that you can then do whatever you want with. All of these emotion things that she's doing, all of the facial expressions that she's doing, how she's actually letting herself feel, I would bet. I don't know what she's feeling, but it sure looks like she's feeling things. Like, all of those things will affect the voice in ways that we just cannot do by saying, okay, now do this with your voice. Now do this with your voice. There's just too much. There is too much to manage for us to be able to micromanage everything. But what she does is just trust that her voice will work because she's practiced it. She's well trained. She is experienced. She is great. And then she can just feel, and all of those feelings might be different day to day. It's a good thing that they're different day to day, because that's what lets us have this variety of live music where she's feeling this way today. If she was feeling a little bit different today, this would be a totally different performance. And we have to allow that to come out. I find most people will try to prevent that kind of variability because they're looking for perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. Straight up, perfect doesn't exist. What you do in this situation, this is perfect. Right? Because she's letting herself exist in this way. But like, we could pick this apart, and my definition of perfect would be totally different than someone else's definition of perfect, totally different than Billie's definition of perfect. And that's like, okay, then what's perfect? Why do we all want to be perfect all the time when all of these things that I'm loving about her performance are the imperfections that happen because she's feeling something? So let yourself feel when you're performing, and that will color it in ways that you cannot do just consciously.
Can't get over you, no matter what I do. I know I should, but I could never hate you.
Nice. Yeah, and on that hate, she kind of hate is a diphthong, hate, right? She went hey, and she made that vowel, and then she went immediately into hate you. I do think the e vowel tunes better. It just, I mean, when I did that he, it was a little bit flat, and as soon as I went to the e, it was no longer flat. E is a really, really lovely vowel, and it's cool that she went to that second part of the diphthong rather than just hate you. They're both different. Practice enough that things are intentional and expected most of the time, so that you can just trust your voice and then just surrender to, I'm feeling things, I'm gonna let things I'm going to let these feelings come out and show on my face and affect my voice and make things imperfect. Make being imperfect your goal when you're performing, because humans are drastically imperfect. Ooh, people really suck. People are not perfect. There's no expectation. Like, rid yourself of that expectation of perfection and aim to make mistakes. Aim to sound weird, because that's how you'll really grow, and that's how people will like you. If you're aiming to be perfect, you're just like on the wrong track. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Go follow me on Twitter and ask me questions and stuff. And have an excellent day. Go make some mistakes.